Hey guys, it's your pal Victor here from Cult Classics, and hey, we're gonna explain the plot and ending of Spider-Man Far From Home. There will be major spoilers throughout this video. If you've seen the movie and want to know what was going on, watch this video. If you're not planning on watching it, want to know what's going on, you can watch this video. If you're afraid of being spoiled, just stop now and watch something else. All right, stay tuned. All right, it goes without saying that Spider-Man No Way Home is probably the most epic Marvel film since Avengers Endgame. It largely takes elements from Into the Spider-Verse and gives it the sort of epic Spider-Man film that people probably didn't think was ever going to happen. And it's really amazing. That being said, there's tons of things that happen in this movie that I think are better served watching in the theaters. But if you're a bit confused by things that were going on, we're going to explain some of these things that are happening. Now, when the movie starts, it effectively serves as an epilogue for Spider-Man Far From Home. We see, the last words of Quentin Beck as Mysterio. We see the Daily Bugle's J. Jonah Jameson decrying Spider-Man as a murderer using Stark Tech drones to kill Mysterio, which was essentially Mysterio's endgame in Far From Home, was to get the public to believe Spider-Man was a villain, and J. Jonah Jameson went right along with it. What ends up happening here, by exposing Spider-Man's identity to public, he largely becomes a public menace. The Department of Damage Control, which we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming, is sort of like a cleanup kind of crew for superhero battles. Has sort of been repurposed in Spider-Man No Way Home. In No Way Home, there's sort of like the ATF or the FBI of superhero affairs, and they take Spider-Man and his friends into custody, and this affects their future. They don't get into college. Spider-Man feels really heartbroken about this. So he's kind of trapped in this like nebulous place. He's arrested by the damage control, and so is Happy. Happy's in real major legal issues, and Aunt May hires a lawyer for Peter to try to get him out of trouble. This lawyer turns out to be Matt Murdoch, aka Charlie Cox from the Netflix Daredevil series. He's playing the exact same character. We have a scene where he is telling Peter he's gonna get off the hook. Peter's really grateful. Somebody throws a brick that says "We believe Mysterio" through the building, and Charlie Cox's Daredevil catches it without looking, and he's also blind. Peter's kind of amazed by this and asks Charlie Cox, "How did you do that?" Cox's answer is, "I'm a really good lawyer." So Peter, being really broken up about him and his friend's broken future, the fact that some of his teachers actually think he is a murderer, he goes to Doctor Strange, who we also learn in this movie is not the Sorcerer Supreme. Wong is, which kind of explains Wong's much bigger role in the MCU in the last several movies. But because Doctor Strange got blipped, Wong didn't get blipped, and he was the Sorcerer Supreme all this time. Kind of shocking, no? Peter asks Doctor Strange, "Help me out, fix my future." So he decides to cast a spell. The order, I think it's called the Order of Kandal or something around those lines. And this will make everyone forget that Peter was ever Spider-Man. And Peter keeps talking during the spell, which changes Doctor Strange's spell 6 times while he's casting it and messes it up. He has to bind the spell in a small cube, similar to what happened in What If, when Ultron Prime is bound in that little cube fighting with Killmonger forever. However, that still wasn't enough to stop some sparks, and one of the aspects of the spell that is cast is that anyone who ever knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man is being directed into this universe. And we find this out when Peter makes an appeal to an officer from MIT to try to get him and his friends back into consideration for admission. He is kind of succeeding when all of a sudden Dr. Octopus shows up. And this is an epic fight on a bridge. It is awesome. You need to see this fight. Peter wins this fight in a really unique way, and Dr. Octopus is shocked to see once Peter removes his mask that he's not Tobey Maguire. He's like, you're not Peter Parker. And Dr. Octopus and Peter are transported into the basement of the Sanctum Sanctorum, where Doctor Strange has sort of set up a holding cell because he had captured the lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man, and tells Peter what's going on, that these incursions are coming in this universe looking for Peter Parker no matter who he is. So he tasks Peter. He upgrades his Iron Spider gauntlet to be able to basically teleport people, if he shoots them with it, into one of these cells. And he goes out into the woods after, getting help from Ned and MJ. And he captures Electro, who is the blue Electro, but it's explained that electricity and energy in the MCU is different from the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man universe. So when he absorbs electricity, it actually heals him, and he now discharges yellow electricity. So there you go. There's an explanation for that. And Sandman is there and helps Peter Parker, thinking it's Tobey Maguire. And this is the Thomas Hayden Church Sandman, who once he sends Electro to the cell, he doesn't trust Spider-Man anymore, but he still gets sent into the cell. At this point, once he's captured several of these villains, and we also find out that Green Goblin is one of the villains because he has his Goblin glider when Peter Parker is fighting Dr. Octopus, manages to escape him. But Aunt May runs into Norman Osborn, who's treated here as something of a schizophrenic or a mentally ill person. Because he says, there's no Oscorp, my son is gone, someone strange is living in my house. And you realize a lot of the Spider-Man villains have mental, emotional issues related to their deformities. And Aunt May convinces Peter that, hey, you should kind of help these guys, and that's kind of the plan until Doctor Strange says, nope, we got to send these guys back to where they came from. When Peter realizes if they get sent back, they all got taken to his universe the second before they died. So if they get sent back, they're all going to die. And Peter's not down with that. The containment cube with the spell, Peter takes it, gets into a fight with Doctor Strange. That is a really cool fight. I don't really want to spoil that. But he ends up with the box. Now, Peter makes use of a fabricator that Tony Stark has in this movie to try to create technology that's going to help some of these villains, and he manages to cure some of them, like Dr. Octopus, from the mental anguish the tentacles create for him. But we realize that even though Norman is helping Peter, he's actually kind of biding his time to take him out. And he turns on them, and he convinces Electro to also turn on Spider-Man. There's an epic Green Goblin Spider-Man fight, and at the end, Green Goblin's getting the upper hand, and to show him Peter's wasting his time being a hero, he ends up killing Aunt May the same way Spider-Man kills Green Goblin. He runs her through with the glider. And this is, as she's dying, she's telling Peter, you didn't waste your time. This wasn't wrong. You have great power. You have to use great responsibility. And one of the big reveals in this movie, just to show that things are different in alternate universes, is we find out Peter never had an Uncle Ben. There was no Uncle Ben. May dying in this movie is the Uncle Ben movie. It is the Uncle Ben moment. And so we basically got his origin reverse. He became a hero. You know, he started growing from movie to movie, but it isn't until the death of his aunt that teaches him why he needs to be a hero. And that's kind of, I thought that was really clever and kind of mind-blowing. But Peter is like shook by Aunt May's death. He can't really go on. Ned and MJ can't find him, but this whole time Ned has had Doctor Strange's sling ring, so he's been joking that he has some magic ability in him. So he's playing around with the sling ring and managed to open a portal, and he says, I'm trying to find Peter Parker, and he opens and we see Spider-Man and Alley, and he walks through. As he walks through, we realize that the outfit looks a little different. That's because it ends up being Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. And this was a really cool moment. You know, they bond with Ned, and he bonds with Ned and MJ. Ned tries again. He opens another portal, and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man comes out, and they kind of form a team trying to find Peter, and they find him, and they kind of explain to him, you know, why they became heroes, how loss kind of defines Spider-Man in general. And we realize time has passed for these heroes because Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man says after Gwen died, he became dark, he stopped pulling his punches, and he kind of lost the love to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And Tobey's kind of the other way. He had a lot of loss, but he's grown as Spider-Man, and it's been hard for him, but he's had MJ by his side to kind of keep him grounded. So the three of them kind of team up, and they decide that they need to help these heroes. They come up with cures for all of their maladies to try to send them back and help them in a way that's really good for them. But it leads to a big fight at the Statue of Liberty, which has been retrofitted. So they're changing the torch to be a giant Captain America shield, which is super hokey. I don't want to spoil too much about the sequence other than the fact that the banter is awesome and they have to learn to be a team. A lot of this is very into the Spider-Verse. Like they're used to being solo heroes, so they have to learn to work together. And eventually they manage to do the deed, except at the end, Green Goblin shows up. And Peter is still not convinced that he can't not kill the Green Goblin. After all, the Green Goblin just killed Aunt May. So, he's, not pulling his punches with the Green Goblin, beating him up, and the Green Goblin's just egging him on. And then he picks up the Goblin glider with the spike, and he's about to impale the Green Goblin and kill him until Tobey Maguire steps in between the two of them. And, he's like, you can't do this, Peter. And he talks him down. And right when, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is like, you're right, Peter. The Green Goblin stabs Tobey Maguire through the back and, impales him. And then, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man throws Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, what looks like a weapon, and Tom Holland grabs him and stabs Green Goblin in the neck, and then that turns out to be the cure to Green Goblin's psychosis, and he's just overcome with grief. And then Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire Peter Parker, he's like, it's all right, I've been stabbed a lot of times. But while this is all happening, right before this had happened, the Green Goblin put a bomb inside the box holding the containment spell, so the multiverse is breaking. It is exploding. You can see characters kind of forming out of the ether. It looks just like the broken multiverse from What If. And Tom Holland realizes the only way they can stop it is if they cast the proper spell where everyone will forget Spider-Man. He says goodbye to his Spider-Man brothers. He tells MJ and Ned he'll find them again one day. The spell is cast. No one knows who Peter Parker is. He goes to May's grave. He finds Happy there. Happy doesn't know who he is. He just says they met through Spider-Man. Sad. He goes to the restaurant where MJ works. He's going to tell her and Ned. They both got into MIT. And as he realizes they're sort of happier, he changes his mind about telling them and leaves. He buys an apartment for himself because no one remembers him. He didn't get into MIT, so he's taking the GED. And he sews himself a new Spider-Man outfit, which is blue and red, like the classic cartoon comic book Spider-Man. And the movie ends with Spider-Man with a radio receiver flying through the air, ready to fight crime. It's a really good movie. But yeah, the crux of it is Spider-Man learning to be Spider-Man. It resets the board. If Spider-Man doesn't return to the MCU, no one remembers him. This is a perfect jumping off point. If he continues his adventures in the Sony universe of Marvel characters, then the board is set there. So that's what happens in Spider-Man No Way Home. The ending explained, the battles explained. If you have more questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed my breakdown, please feel free to subscribe, like, and we'll have more breakdowns of superhero movies and shows here on Cult Classics. Thanks, you guys.